The Central Weekly, a weekly podcast from the Central Podcast Network. We've got episode 76 coming your way.
Wow.
John Henninger.
Hi, Jared Lacrone.
You never do it back to me in an accent.
That's kind of your thing. I don't want to take your thing.
We're here to talk episode 76. We have a very special guest with us in the podcast, Mrs. Green, but adults know her as Kelsie Green.
Kelsie Green.
We're excited to have her on the podcast because if you're familiar with what we did in service this weekend here at Central, we kind of, gave honor to honors due for our educators and teachers.
Yeah, there's obviously no secret that a lot of people are going back to school this week. No?
No, I said, oh no.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's coming. I didn't know.
The inflection was like and so we want to, obviously send those teachers back into the classroom, prayed over. And actually on that book that we gave them 40 pocket prayers from Max Lucado, 40 pocket prayers for teachers.
Yeah.
And we put a little sticker on there that says you are loved, appreciated, and prayed for by Central. And so just hopefully a reminder to them as they go through the school year that they are indeed what we talked about this last weekend, empowered by the Holy Spirit with an extra measure of boldness to do what they've been called to do.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. And really, Kelsie does a great job of just exploring what that means to be bold in the classroom, and really her job as a teacher and to empower these lives that she has. And the great thing is, when you're a Christian educator, you're doing that with the help and the empowerment of the Holy Spirit. So it's going to be a great conversation. I'm glad for you guys to hear it. This weekend we talked all about the boldness of the church. So
we
week
did.
number 2 of A Church Alive.
Right.
And it was, again, stepping stones. I say this almost every series, but it's great to have that foundation of the birth of the church. Really, the empowerment of the church was the birth of the church. And then now we're stepping up into going in boldly, being all in, being fully committed, and what that comes with.
Yeah, like we talked about last week, I think a lot of times when we say or think about the birth of the church, we think like the initiation of the gathering, and that's really not what it was. It was kind of the arrival of the Holy Spirit promised by Jesus with believers, filling believers. And so last week we talked about the birth of the church, and then I think just natural sequence wise, right? All of a sudden you have something different, a different kind of power filling you, and you can walk in a different kind of courage.
Yeah. Authority given boldness. I really like that.
Authority, right.
And I think that is
authority-driven boldness.
So, D instead of a G. Got it. So, question: were you one of those people that did change seats at a ball game?
I'll tell you this,
because I can see Bob Henninger always doing that.
That's exactly what I was just gonna say. Like my dad was all for it.
Oh yeah, and your mom?
Not me.
Bob.
Like I don't know. Still to this day, I don't know if my mom's been to a sporting event. But he was always, like, oh, let's sneak down, whatever. I was always uncomfortable with it. Like I was never. I don't know. I was always weirded out by it. But oh yeah. So have you done that?
Absolutely. That was Jim Lacrone.
Yeah.
Jim Lacrone would he would give it 2 or 3 innings. Just to see here the crowd's going to settle in.
Right.
So it almost gave him like, oh, okay, they're not coming, so we're going to go take the seats.
Right, but then
they come late.
Turns out they show up in the 4th inning. They're like, hey, I think you're maybe in our seats, and you're like, what? Oh,
how many times have you been bumped out of your
This clearly says section 431, and this is 131.
Oh, sorry. So do you make it up, or because I remember we just like, oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sure we just moved,
because I remember Dad, because we were talking. So if you don't want to hear us talk about ballparks for the next 3 minutes, go ahead and zoom ahead, because we're going to talk ballparks.
Okay.
So it's funny because I was talking to Phoebe Reagan about old to be Reagan, Dan Reagan, and she was talking about how her dad was a classic 80s and 90s dad. So I was like, my dad was the same way. Her dad would always bring the binoculars. And he'd always have like a tote bag that the binoculars would go in. Inside, he'd have his own peanuts, because you're not going to spend $8 on a bag of peanuts, even though then it was probably $2 or $3.
Right.
But inflation. But anyways, it was just so funny that was the epitome of my dad.
Yeah.
He literally, I think it was like an American Express free bag that he got for the credit card company.
Yeah.
It was bright blue.
Yeah.
Always had. That was always what he took to Cardinals and Cubs games.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think there's so many dads that were like that. Like, let's pack some sandwiches and or whatever.
And you can't do that now. They say it's because of
You
safety.
can.
They want to look through the back. Really?
You can pack it. It just can't have any glass glass or
see, I didn't know
whatever.
that.
I mean, you can bring your own stuff.
So you can be frugal at a ball game still.
You could be.
Okay. Well, here's the funny thing. I'm really into ballparks. I really like. How many ballparks do you think you've been to? Let's talk just
2.
baseball. That was easy.
Baseball?
Yes.
All right.
Baseball
so
stadiums.
I've been to Three Rivers, which is is it still? It's not. It's PNC Park now.
Yep. Well, it's always been when it was built as the Pirates Field.
Okay.
Right. It was always PNC.
You got me.
Yeah.
Jacobs Field, which is Cleveland.
Yeah. Now Progressive, or maybe something else.
Something
now.
else. Yeah. And obviously the old Busch and this Busch. So there's 2 more. Kansas City. I've been to Kansas City.
Yeah. The Royals.
And I would say that may be it. I know you've been to many,
well,
right?
I always like to bring this up because I had one summer, the summer of 2005, after my freshman year in college. For some reason, between April and September that year, I was able to just privileged with 5 ballparks.
Wow.
And it was amazing because, so I think it started off with, we went to a typical, it seems like every summer you make your way to a St. Louis ball game. Okay. So I went to St. Louis, and that was probably Busch Stadium 2. Or technically, because technically it's 3.
Right.
So then we went up to Chicago for a game. We saw a game at Wrigley Field. And then for some reason we were visiting, my sister in the Cleveland area. She lives in Canton. And so we went to, it was Jacobs Field then.
Yep.
And so I think that. I remember Maria was with us on that one too. Then we dropped off Maria at college in Cincinnati. So we got to go to Cincinnati. So that's 4. So we went to, now that is going blank on the name.
Great American
Ballpark.
Yeah.
Great ballpark. And then number 5, we were visiting Maria's sister and brother-in-law in Colorado. Oh. So number 5 was Coors Field.
Nice. Very good. That's one I'd like to go to. I'd like to go to Coors Field. I'd like to go to AT&T or whatever it's called now out in San Francisco.
Yeah, what is it now? But I mean, that's the thing. And really, out of those 5, those are some of like the top 10 ballparks right there. Because I know Great American always gets high marks. Progressive used to, but it seems like they just, maybe because they don't have a lot of people going to get Cleveland Guardian games now, that's just not as high.
Okay, so does this count? Like, I've been to Wrigley.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I've been on the field at Wrigley, but I've never been to a game there. So I don't know if that counts or not.
Did you sing the national anthem?
No. They had like during the winter, they have some sort of like winter spectacular thing where like you ice skate or you know and all that.
Now they even have that new area to the thing. Yeah, if Nate Carter calls, he's on the road. That's who's calling right now.
Nate Carter's calling me right now.
He could join the podcast.
I'm declining it. All right. Well, let's go ahead and answer this.
Let's see how this works.
Live on air caller here.
He's an avid listener.
Hi, Nate Carter. Hey, you're live on the podcast right now. How you doing? Pretty good. Well, here you are. You are a guest live and in person. Well, you're not live and in person. You're
live and on
my phone. So I just figured I'd go ahead and answer it and give you a chance to say hello to the listenership, and then tell you I'd call you later. Wow, that is the promo clip we'll use for next week.
Wow, I listen to it every week.
I'll give you a call later, man. Thanks, bye.
We should have asked Nate how many ballparks he's been to.
Yeah,
but yeah, even just architecture. I'll go to. I mean, like right now, Cardinal fans are not showing up to Cardinals games.
No,
I'd still go. I love baseball games, even if they're playing Tampa and it's
hint.
Yeah, hint what?
You said I'd still go.
I'd still go. Yeah. So if anybody has tickets, my boys have not gone to a game yet. And I'm excited to take
Ever in their life?
No, I don't think they have. Oh. I mean, again, we're finally getting out of survival mode.
Yeah, right.
With the Twins and Quincy.
Good point.
We're finally starting to go, okay, because yeah. But anyways, okay. So now, hopefully, maybe this is the time where we pick back up after our 4.5 minute talk of baseball. But really, the whole point was that when you have a ticket, you feel empowered because you have the authority to go where you're
authorized to go. You've got a seat. So your walk to your seat, you have a different kind of boldness in your walk because you have the authority to go where you're headed.
Sorry, I forgot to mention this from the ballpark. Okay. Did you know, I know from Yankee Stadium and I believe it's White Sox, which is weird, it's White Sox. Both of them, if you get seats up in the 500, you are not allowed to go lower. they check your seat. They
Do
check
they
your
really?
tickets. Yeah, they have signs posted. I was like, that's just mean.
You know what? I also have been to Toronto. I forgot about that.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Rogers Center.
I have no idea.
Yeah, Rogers Center.
Yeah, saw a game there. My friend Kevin Tetuan chucked the bouncy ball onto the field from the top deck.
He get kicked out?
I don't think they knew who it was. Yeah.
So back to this. Now let's talk about the shift, the existing to be empowered after Pentecost. So talk a little bit about that and what the awakening, the authorization that happened after that.
So I think the church,
The shift.
on the day of Pentecost, they just see, like, obviously they're filled with this different kind of power. They see the result. And so there is this shift in the church. It's almost like they go from, the Bible gives a specific number, 120 of them were meeting before the day of Pentecost. And there was just kind of like I would assume to be a little bit less formal, I mean, there's just kind of a whatever, whenever, kind of like we're just together in it. Us 120, we're praying, gathering, selecting leaders, that kind of thing. But then all of a sudden on the day of Pentecost, 3,000 people joined the church in one day. And so the church experiences this power and really moves into a whole new season. All of a sudden, they're filled with the Holy Spirit, and this gathering of 120 all of a sudden becomes thousands with planned prayer services and scheduled worship times, and all of a sudden the church is open and public and confident both in faith and practice. And it's a marked difference between the pre-Holy Spirit church versus the post.
I'm thinking about that time period. Do you think there was a little bit of a grace period after Pentecost? Meaning Jesus had died, the Romans thought they took care of the problem, and probably even the Jewish officials thought they did too. And then, boom, Pentecost, 3,000. I mean, that's a lot for in Jerusalem at that time, even though Jerusalem's probably one of the biggest cities in the world at that time.
Sure.
But, I mean, in a grace period, meaning what I'm saying is the newness of it, the empowerment of it. If you've been around a huge gathering where everybody's on fire and fully committed, but then, and it's before the real bad persecution happens from the Romans. Don't you think? There maybe is a little bit of a grace.
Well, I mean, there's definitely, like Acts 2:47. The believers experienced the goodwill of the people too. And so there's this. That's part of this shift where like they're in the good graces, the believers are in the good graces of the people, all the while still I guess under scrutiny from the authorities, because the authorities are the ones who crucified Jesus. And so there's this there's this tension point, I think, there where the people love him. And that's really what happened with, Peter and John when they went before the council. The council was kind of like in this spot where we don't really know what to do, like, because obviously this man was healed. We know that he's been this lame man who's been at the beautiful gate forever. And so we knew him before these people, but all of a sudden he's been healed. We can't deny the power, but at the same time, we can't say that this is the power of Jesus Christ through the Holy Spirit, because then our whole narrative is out.
It's great. I mean, I'm only going to talk about this because you have a homeless thread in your sermon, and we'll get to St. Louis Paul in just a minute. But it's funny because every time I hear about the lame man at the beautiful gate, I always think about a homeless person by Walmart. Because every town, that's where usually a Walmart's by a interstate system. Yeah. So usually they're traveling in and they're stuck, and that's usually where you see them is right. And so I'm thinking, and it's just funny because the beautiful gate, they're not technically allowed to go through there because they're impure and they're not allowed to go to make their sacrifice to the Lord and be with So it always makes me think. I was like, so when I envision this, I envision like the two guys going by into Walmart, and then look, there's somebody there that needs healing and needs empowerment. And I don't know, that's always my modern day equivalent there. But Romans 3, what you're talking about, there's so many nuggets in there that you didn't even have a chance to get into.
No, sure.
Just because I'll give you what I have. I think that was a big point that you made, because this is the empowerment that he has. So, and that's and there's a testimony estimate there. This is my testimony. This is what God has done for me, and this is what he can do for you. And then I also wrote down, saw the opportunity and seeing Jesus. Now, what did you say about saw the opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, so Peter, and again, you know, I mean, like, this is the same Peter who denied Christ 3 times, denied that he even knew him. Now, all of a sudden, filled with the Holy Spirit, and there's a restoration there, right? But Peter, because of all the attention that this miracle has drawn, sees the opportunity and seizes the opportunity, and once again preaches the gospel of Jesus to this crowd that is gathered, and the church continues to grow. And that's when the officials say, whoa, 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 we don't know what to do with this. And so they arrest Peter and John, and then they question them, and then the story goes on that they continue to test, like, they don't back down, even even in the face of the worldly authority, they don't back down and like kind of soften the story.
I'll relax.
Yeah, and it even gets to the point where the authorities say, like, okay, we're going to let you go, but just don't do this anymore. And they say, how could we not? I mean, like, you can say that all you want, but there's no chance of us not doing this.
And I really hope people are finding some parallels to their own lives there, that they see an opportunity and they seize an opportunity. Then you go into your next point was, or a kind of main point, key to boldness is to know who you believe.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think knowing is the beginning of boldness.
Yes.
And knowing who it is and what he can do that resides within you, I mean, should be a game changer for our courage and boldness, like what happened in the book of Acts, like what happened to believers in the book of Acts. Did you ever sing, like, maybe this is just like a AG thing, maybe this is some was a God thing, I don't know. Did you ever sing that song, like, be bold, be strong, for the Lord thy God is with you? Did you?
Never heard that song.
Oh, yeah. It was like one of those, like, it had motions with it. You know?
Well, I mean,
nerd. I'm a nerd.
No, but motions were a big thing back in the day.
For sure.
Big thing. Back with skits and, But I think flags are coming back, though. We'll see. I don't know about here, but we'll see. We'll see.
Do you?
I think, well, I don't know. Maybe. Certain contexts. Maybe a First Thursday. We're going to get some flags at a First Thursday. I don't know, but we'll see. You're cringy. But here's the thing. I love your modern day equivalent, St. Louis Paul. So tell us, how you heard about St. Louis Paul?
Okay, so your friend, John Clark.
With an E.
No.
No E.
I don't believe there's any E first or last name.
Great friend of mine.
John Clark.
I need to change my phone.
Has introduced us to this ministry called Message and a Meal, where this guy from St. Louis named Paul, a former addict, he and his family have done this for, I don't know, 10 years maybe, where once a week they set up on a street corner. They've got like a little penned-in area,
I saw that in the video.
Fenced-in area where they keep all their supplies and stuff like that. But once a week they feed people a meal, and he boldly preaches the gospel. And it's this really cool ministry. But because of his ministry, he's of course formed a relationship with many homeless people, and there is a nearby factory. And I mean, do you want me to tell the whole story? Or
well, it was just interesting when you were telling the story about the factory and him walking through it and him declaring first of all saying who he was. And how you were walking in the authority of a name.
When John was telling me this story, like, just this, I mean, like, this realization of, I don't think that John wasn't telling it to me to say, like, oh, look at the way, like, the authority, whatever, but like, it's just, you can't help but notice that there is a time when, in the context of walking through that building, where Paul understands where his authority stops and where the authority of Jesus begins.
Yep. And I think that's a really just good reminder too about, like, when we were talking about in our run through, Zach brought up just the importance to remember that this is not a battle of flesh and blood, but it's a spiritual battle. And he knew exactly where that spiritual, I don't want to say essence, but that decay happened in that building, a building probably full of just spiritual battles, but he knew a difference between, okay, this is a different space.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, there's I don't know, to me the parallel is so clear. Like there are things in our life where we can walk through where your name does carry some power. You've got some authority, but there are some things that you'll encounter where your name doesn't make a difference, and it's the name that you're attached to. I even said that in the sermon, I mean, like, even though there's scripture that says, like the name above every other name, heaven and earth bow to that. What scripture is saying is not necessarily like the name Jesus in the letters strung together, Jesus. Yeah. It is the authority that comes with Jesus Christ of Nazareth. I mean, it's that's why, when Peter heals that blind man or the lame man, he says, in the name of Jesus Christ the Nazarene, I tell you to stand up.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that's it started with the empowerment of the apostles and the disciples, and then it continues through us now. Any special powers that we have are not from our own doing. They're completely through the authority of Jesus Christ, empowerment from the Holy Spirit. And I think that's where and that's why I think you could hear a little bit of your uncomfortableness in your sermon last week talking about that a little bit, because you're like, hey, I'm not talking about a debate here between charismatic and conservative, but I'm just talking about the clarity of what the Holy Spirit is and what he brings to us and the power that is formed in that. And that's just like this that we're talking about today. It's that authority lies with Jesus and Jesus alone. We see too many on probably both ends where we take too much authority to ourselves, or we get drunk with the power and we think that, maybe it was because I did that. Maybe that happened that way. So no, it's only by his authority. And the apostles had it dead on. And I love it, even when they were bold enough to declare it, even when they had like you said, the authority of that day was telling them to chill it out. They're like, no, you really can't tell me to do that.
Right. And it was like, there's a lesson in it for me, like with Peter, because I mean, something that it's just I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Like, so Peter, this miracle happens because Peter and John do this deal, right? This guy is healed. And Peter doesn't deflect the attention.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, he accepts the attention and then directs the conversation in a way that is going to point people towards the power that it really came through. And so there's definitely a fine line there, between am I going to just shut down the attention and deflect it and whatever, push it away, or am I going to allow this attention to build and then use my moment for something great?
God-given ambition. And I think there's a podcast I was listening to, and he's got a new thing out, and he called it, I think, God-given ambition, because ambition's not a bad thing as long as it's based on the right thing.
Right.
I didn't think we'd go in here, but and that's in my communion when I was truthful in the fact that I need to be careful how I proceed in boldness, because it has to be a heart and my actions. It can't be one or the other. And that's why for me it's like, okay, if God's calling me into something, I have to boldly go into that, and my heart needs to be in it as well as my actions and my will. And I think there's too often people shy away from their God-given ambition because maybe either they feel too scared that they're doing it on their own, which you're not, because you're empowered by the Holy Spirit. And another thing I was thinking, I don't know if it's a side note or not, but when it talks about direction in life and hearing the voice of God, and I always get frustrated, like, okay, why can't I just hear the voice of God tell me to do exactly what I need to do? But I've learned, even just in the last couple months, about there's a reason he doesn't do that. In most cases, probably the majority of cases, is because he wants you to act in faith. And because it's really not acting in faith to hear your general tell you to do something and then you go and you do those orders. That's just listening and doing, which is great. But there's a heart posture that I think develops when you're hearing and you're obeying, and your heart and your mind and your all are in it together. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think there's like a development of the person that God is working on, why he says, okay, I'm going to speak through the Holy Spirit. I'm going to put things on your heart. I'm going to put people in your pathways. I'm going to have them speak into your life. That's how you came along in that decision and how you see that direction in your life, rather than me just saying, go here, right? So I don't. Hopefully, God doesn't sound like that. But.
No, I mean,
you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do, and I think that God has a history of using like third-party people and things,
Yep.
you know, to show His will or whatever. I mean, you know, all the way back in the Old Testament, remember they would like they had spiritual like lot casting, basically, you know, where God would speak through that to people, and so. I think, you know, to expect that every time it's going to be this clear, audible voice is just probably not reality, although He could. Yeah. But more often than not, He's going to urge you through His Holy Spirit. He's going to, you know, bring other people to speak into you. He's going to bring things and situations around you that confirm what you feel like you're hearing from Him.
And our hope is, gosh, I think really, just like the educators and every field, we are to be kingdom of light bringers into every field, and we need to be bold in that. And I loved your kind of one of the phrases I took at the end there, where His presence goes, His power goes.
Right. I mean, and the catch there is that if you're a Christian, then the Holy Spirit is promised to be with you. So His presence is with you, and where His presence goes, His power goes, and His power hasn't changed. So watch out.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really good. And I love that we finished with the prayers for the teachers and the educators. Yeah. Because it's just like, here's a visual representation of some, I forget how I say it in Kelsey's conversation, of some very high profile, like legit in it. Because we're all meant to be light in the kingdom. I think in the conversation coming up, it's like, yeah, you have a right to share your faith if you're at Continental pumping tires. Right. But you have more influence directly when you've got 20 to 25 kids in your classroom 5 days a week.
That's what I'm saying. Like, they have access to lives and influence on lives that you and I will never have. Yeah. Because, I mean, you and I could both talk about teachers that we've had through the years, you know, at every level of schooling. And we don't often... I don't know. I think sometimes we just think, oh, a teacher's a teacher or whatever, but there is just so much influence that a teacher has.
Yep. So that's it for A Church Alive, Week 2, the boldness of the church. So let's hear this boldness play out in real life. Thus, our conversation with Kelsie Green. You like that?
That was very good.
Yeah. I don't know thus, though. I say thus too much. That's weird. Okay. So here's our conversation again. Make sure to listen to this conversation. Don't just go to the next episode, or I don't know, go with something else. This is a great conversation for you to hear, just about how God can urge you into something better, even if you're doing something good. So let's take a break. We're going to bring in Kelsie, and then we'll be right back after her conversation. Thanks a lot, guys. And we're back with the Central Weekly with a very special guest. We have a teacher in the house, Mrs. Kelsie Green. Kelsie, say hi.
Hi.
Kelsie, I'm excited about this conversation because you were kind of on my radar last year when we brought in some teachers to kind of tell us about, you know, what it's like to be a teacher, have faith, and be in the classroom. And you have a unique perspective because we share something, foster care.
Correct.
So really, I'm a little selfish in this conversation because I want to talk foster care with you. So Kelsie, first say hi.
Hi, everyone.
And really, that's kind of a unique situation that we have this weekend. First of all, we're recording this prior to Fantastic Nights. So if you hear some background music, it's going to be pumping behind us, but it's not a big deal. It kind of adds to the conversation. So Kelsie, we're bringing you in because really this weekend at Central, we're talking about the boldness of the church, but really we're taking a moment to thank teachers and really educators in general. So homeschoolers, administration, janitors, anybody that helps shape children in a education capacity. Because really, you guys are in the trenches. So it's just a way to say, hey, Central cares for you. Central's praying for you. So that's why we brought you in. And again, I'm excited to have a conversation and get your perspective. So Kelsie Green, first of all, spell your name because it's different.
K-E-L-S-E-I.
Perfect. And then Kelsie Green, tell us a little bit, just who's Kelsie Green?
Well, I am a mom. I, in the past year, shifted roles from a classroom teacher to an RTI instruction interventionist, and I love it. It's a transition I never foresaw myself taking.
And that's RTI?
Yes, a response to intervention. So students who may be just needing an extra boost, needing some extra whatever it may be, literally in any capacity, that's where I get to step in. It's kind of wonderful.
Wait. Yeah, we'll talk more about that. And then what else?
I love dogs.
Oh, yes.
I love dogs. They're just my favorite. I think I might like them a little bit more than people sometimes.
I love other people's dogs. It's like a grandparent.
I'm like that with other people's babies.
Yeah, see, that's good. That's good. And your husband, he's a strong, manly man of a man.
Oh, yes.
Tell us who your husband is.
My husband is Scott Green.
He's the best.
And he's fantastic. I love him and all of his 5 million projects and interests and things. God definitely partnered us together for a reason. He brings out the adventurous side in me, and I think I hold his feet to the ground.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's good. And we've got 2 girls, Kylie and Reagan. They are wonderful, polar opposites, and absolutely wonderful.
Seems like that's the case in most sisters at that age.
Yeah. I mean, they truly are fantastic. They make me sometimes want to pull my hair out, but they're fantastic.
Yeah.
And then we also have our foster babies, whom I adore and have found that I've used so many teachery things. On helping them, which is great.
Yeah, that's I appreciate when I see teachers that delve into foster care, because I just know there's so many assets that they've learned in the classroom that can help, because it's a perfect marriage of, I don't know, ministries. Right. Okay, so Kelsie Green, tell us a little bit about how you grew up. Are you from around here? And even kind of bring in, how did faith play a role? Did you guys go to church growing up? What was that like?
Okay, so I grew up in Jefferson County. I grew up going to church every Sunday, but it was more in the capacity of you go to church because you're supposed to go to church. And I didn't ever necessarily truly connect deeply with the church. So my journey with Christ didn't really develop until we came to Central, actually. And we had tried some other churches and stuff. I kind of felt this like hole in my soul that something was missing. And I deliberately remember telling Scott one day, like, there's something missing and I don't know what it is. So I'm going to go to church and see if that fixes it, kind of a thing. And man, oh man, did it. Like, that first service I remember coming to was so uncomfy, but in a good way, like in a, oh yeah, this is what was missing. And like, am I getting punked? Have they been following me around? Like, so, but in such a good way that it brought us back, you know? And my marriage grew and thrived. I mean, we definitely went through bumps along the way, but deeply beginning to be more deeply rooted in Christ together grew us big. It grew our girls in a wonderful way.
Because what year was this? Coming into Central?
I think 2015.
2015. Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Wow, I thought you've been here longer.
No.
That's crazy.
8 years, I think.
From the onset, it's just like we knew the Greens, and you guys were just really a hit family for us, because just smiles, and and you guys really started getting involved really quickly, I would say. Too.
I think it was within the first year. We had great connections by way of like where I was working. I had a teacher and friend in Adrienne Lyde. And so I was able to reach out to her and say like, hey, I'm really feeling pulled and called to get more involved and dive deeper. And I don't know what that looks like, but it's really scary. And from there, she put me in touch with Phoebe. And I remember like thinking, I want to rock babies. Like put me in the baby room. Nope. She put me in 2nd grade. And initially I was like, I teach all week. I don't want to go teach on Sunday too. But I truly like, God knew where I needed to be, and I loved it. It was wonderful. Scott kind of followed along, and
he did,
because it was more convenient for our family to be in the same place at the same time. He joined in, was in 3rd through 5th for a lot of years, and our girls just stayed for double time. We eventually started doing every Sunday because, again, convenience. And we also learned so much, and we would develop connections and relationships with the kids in our small groups so quickly because we were seeing them every Sunday. And man, those relationships, we learned so much from them. We grew with those kids. And so it was pretty wonderful.
I would, just, you guys are a good example of a family that serves together. And it's crazy because I see that a lot. I mean, when I was in Connections, I saw that a lot, but I hear about it even more, where I can see, because Shay and I both have the shared text messaging with this. So I see those that she's text out, and I see so many people and a lot of dads, which good for dads, saying, I want to find a place where we can serve family together. So we've got a lot, like I think of the Colemans and a couple other families that serve like guest services and Kid Depot. And like you said, I mean, kudos. I don't know if I really use that word more enough, but good on your family for sticking it out every because here's the thing. A lot of people can't do that just because there's a lot going on.
Right.
And we try to provide month on, month off, especially in Kid Depot. But really, to see a relationship bloom, you got to be in it with the kids.
Yeah, it was great. And we did that for probably 5, almost 6 years.
Yeah.
And it was a strange thing when we stepped back. There was just a restlessness in our life.
Yeah.
And I was feeling that same restlessness in the classroom at the time. And looking back now, I can see we were needing to step away from things that were good, but were occupying too much of our mental space and time because he was preparing us for foster care.
Yeah.
And we had no idea it was coming in that direction. So again, it was kind of uncomfy as we were transitioning in ways that we didn't understand, but man, was it good. And we will definitely be back in our Kid Depot capacity at one point or another because our hearts miss it greatly.
Yeah. I think Phoebe and Ashton will love that when that happens. Okay, so we went really quick through a lot of things, but let's backpedal just a little bit. So growing up here in Jefferson County, did you always want to be a teacher, or was that something? What was little Kelsie Green like?
Oh, she was like Reagan Green.
Yeah, I can see that.
Very, very, very bold, very loud, very happy overall. But I wanted to be all kinds of things, the typical things, a vet. I actually wanted to be a chiropractor at one point. How strange is that? But I had a strong desire for helping people and a strong desire for nurturing. Something I actually always wanted to be was a mom. First and foremost, I always wanted to be a mom. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. If I could do that and make money, it'd be great, kind of a thing. But what's next? The next best thing is a teacher. Like you get to love on children all day long. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong; it totally comes with challenges, but it's great. So I grew up knowing that I definitely wanted to be in that capacity.
So early childhood degree.
Elementary.
Okay. Yep. And then, so what was the first couple years like? Did you get right in? Because I know you're just, tell us like what school district, that kind of thing.
Okay. So, I actually got my degree and my license in Florida first because Scott was in the military at the time. Yes. Kylie was also born in Florida. So fun fact about her. So once we moved back here, there was not the situation we have right now with the teacher shortage. Yeah. It was the opposite.
Really?
You actually could not get a job. It was taking a lot. For instance, whenever, I worked.
What year was that?
That was 2011.
I only asked that because that's about the same time Maria was getting out and looking for a job. And I remember she would say, because she applied in Salem because she's from Salem, and there were just hundreds of applicants per position.
Right.
And that's not the case now.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, it kind of took you getting in somewhere through subbing for people to get to know you, and you were almost they were test driving you basically to see how well you could classroom manage, if you could flow well with staff. So I worked in 2 small county school districts as an aide for a while and enjoyed it, but I was really just itching to get my own classroom, and then was hired out at INA, which is now Spring Garden. Okay. And I was there for 2 years, 3rd grade. I really, really loved it. I remember vividly pouring into a few of my students that you could kind of tell by some behaviors. They needed someone pouring into them in the essence of, hey, this is the track you're on. Yeah. I believe in you, and I know that's not who you are. So let's come back.
I would say, that's the thing. I said this in summer school. 3rd grade was my favorite year. I think because I had great teachers. My friends, were great. I was still doing sports, but kind of doing the drama stuff too. Yeah. But those 3rd and 4th grade, you really start to see the personality. You really see, okay, this is where they're going in life, even at that young age. And that's, to me, you starting to really shape who they are. Right. I think that's like your first shaping year. First, second, you're still foundational stuff. But gosh, 3rd and 4th, you're really starting to mold.
Yeah. So, for sure. So I did like it, but my heart was honestly on kindergarten. Like I just love the little babies. So I was granted an opportunity to work at District 80 at the primary center, and I was able to work 2 years in kindergarten, and then I moved up to 1st grade for 6 years. And there was huge changes over the years in general in education, and it was so good though. Like it was so good. There were so many different demographics and diversities and dynamics that would come into a classroom. And the beginning of every year would come with that challenge of, students are not really knowing one another. And so you'd see some who were very reserved. You'd see some who were class clown or very, very bold. And then over time, though, you would see everyone kind of level out, like a family dynamic would just form. And it was always so good in that way. And getting the opportunity to teach kids how to simply love one another. Like, you don't have to like one another, but respect and care for one another was huge. The development in those few years was huge. So I really enjoyed my time during that phase of life. Never really imagined God would pull me out of it.
Yeah. And you might already have answered this, but favorite thing about teaching?
Oh, there's it's so cliche. No, not the curriculum. I like the social emotional development a lot, but there's that aha moment, and it is with anything. Like that moment whenever a kid becomes empowered in understanding, like they actually settle in with that knowledge. Oh, it's awesome. Like that empowerment that we get to give kids to help them know that they can is amazing. Yeah.
And that's, to me, why we need more Christian teachers. Just because it's like, and again, we're kingdom workers. We are meant to change the environments we're in, but there's almost more at stake. With kids and with the students. And that's why because you're shaping people. Yes, you're working at Continental and you can have that relationship with your buddy as you're pounding out tires. I don't know if that's how you do it, but as you're molding rubber. I don't know. But with the kid, you have literally 20 to 25 kids that you are in charge of for, 6 hours a day. And to me, that's why it's just so important to have Christian teachers. How has your faith played a role in the classroom?
Over time, I've been able to see how the way I approach situations with my students, with my colleagues, the way I've set boundaries, with my districts, with what the state requires. So on every level, I've been able to see a shift. And the deeper that I go in my faith, the more I'm not willing to let certain things impact me, but then also I'm more willing to step in those areas that initially I maybe was feeling like, oh, I probably shouldn't, or I should be cautious, or that's not my place or my business. I'm often more willing to step into situations where maybe an outcome can be developed that's going to be more beneficial for whoever's involved. So there's definitely more courage in stepping into the hard stuff.
That's good. That's what we're supposed to do. When we're about to get into foster care, but that's stepping out of the boat on a daily basis with a lot of situations, and especially when you're talking emotional. And we had Savannah last year. She came in and talked about that's like her long-term goal is to get into that more. And again, that's just an even bigger way that we can influence kids is that social emotional development. Because I think what used to almost be a given from families, and then they would bring that into the classroom, that's not a given anymore. It's almost like teachers are doing the curriculum and the normal teacher stuff, but they're also shaping emotional development at the same time. And
I think that has a large that's in play because we've got such a busy society now. And so no fault on parents necessarily. Like I feel it as a parent myself. This summer, my girls have been involved with some sports already. And I've often caught myself thinking, it wasn't like this when I was growing up. There just wasn't this pressure to go. So I get it. I get it. Not a fault kind of a thing, but it definitely is there. It definitely is a challenge on teachers. But from my perspective, I really value it in the essence of that will carry them through every relationship they will ever have. Math and reading and writing and science and social studies, those are very, very important. But what will help them be successful in any relationship they have is development of self-regulation and just understanding their own emotions and the emotions of others and how those can contribute together.
And it's almost like I always think of that as like a building, like a foundation. You have to have that foundation in order to build math, science, and all that other stuff that we need in our life to to be able to, be in our society the way we need to be, especially as Christians. Again, that's why I think education, it's almost like our world, we almost have black and white. It's like, you either have to be completely all in with your faith and ignore that, but there's just a balance there. I think Hayden a couple weeks ago mentioned just about how, God wants us to be intelligent, but there's also simplicity that we lack sometimes because we're trying to almost go over and above in the intelligence. And again, I think, and maybe a little bit of a tangent, but I appreciate again having classrooms that are full of faith.
Yeah.
And really, we're lucky around here. We have a lot of teachers, and I know you could speak on that, just about the friendships and the relationships that you have with teachers that are of the same mind.
Yes.
And struggling sometimes in what we are having with our school systems the way they are now.
Yep.
Again, that's not to knock them. That's not to knock them, but really, it's definitely. I mean, you would say it's more of a challenge to be a teacher than it was 10 years ago.
For sure.
And again, I don't want to get on the negative aspect, but it just, again, and the stakes are higher, I would say. Okay, so let's talk, if you're ready, changing the subject to dogs.
Okay.
I'm gonna stay here for just a little bit because I know that you're a big dog lover, and I know there's a lot of people that probably listen that love their animals. Again, I love other people's animals. I would love if I could
hear the excitement in my voice.
Yeah. If I could have just a stuffed animal. Okay, here we go. So tell me about your love of dogs and really what you and Scott did for quite a while.
Okay. So yes, I love dogs. I don't know why. I just love dogs. They're great. And a few years ago, actually, when Scott and I moved into the home we're living in now, I felt so tremendously blessed. It checked all the boxes. Like one of those things that in my mind, that shouldn't have happened. And it did. And I felt tremendously blessed. So at the time, Scott wouldn't let me do foster care. He wouldn't let me bring home more children. So instead, I talked him into letting me get another dog. So we got a dog from a rescue in the area. And that led to another rescue dog. And we had like 5 dogs at the time. And in those 2 rescues, though, we learned so much about the trauma that potentially had occurred and the things that were lacking in the development of socialization and such those first months of their lives. And we had to overcome a lot. Like one of our dogs, I looked at Scott one night and I said, I don't know if she can stay. And it was because she was that questionable. And he was very, very determined, as he always is. And he's like, no, we're going to figure her out and we're going to fix this. And so we did, which was amazing. We taught ourselves a lot. And from there, we fell in love with rescue. We, along the way, had lost our miniature schnauzer, Gracie, who was one of our first babies. And she had gotten cancer. And so that was really hard. And there was one night, I remember, we kind of like pipe dreamed about doing rescue one day, and I really never thought it would happen, but Scott Green, he makes all the things happen. So we ended up deciding to open a rescue, and he hooked me with the name, and he's like, if we ever did it, we could name it Saving Grace. And I bawled and I cried. And of course I was set. We slowly kind of walked into that life, just watching what was going on in our local animal controls and having this appreciation for our 2 dogs that like, man, they're great. Like they've overcome so much. And I know it's hard. And I know that not everyone has the knowledge and the patience or the capability, the time to do what we did with them. What if we could take these dogs out of animal control, get them in a more comfortable setting with us? What if we could work on some of their problem areas, discover them, work on some of them the way we did with our dogs, train them up a little bit. We're not making service dogs here. Like we're just figuring out their quirks and kind of undoing them, and then help them find homes that are best suited for them. So we did. Between Scott Green and God, we did it. And God moved in a really, really big way through the rescue. We started it when COVID hit, and it was a great distraction for our family. It helped us to actually make a ton of connections with people all over the state. In that time, we brought 63 dogs through our rescue. It was 2 years, 63 dogs. Wow. It was pretty crazy, but provision Oh man, if I could speak of understanding provision, we definitely saw it there. But through that season, we witnessed a friend. Well, besides you guys, even we'd watched you guys walk the life of foster care, and I kind of kept elbowing Scott the whole time, like, "Hey, see, like it's something doable." But we had the rescue. Well, in that season, we went through a transition where we watched another friend say yes to foster care twice, and our daughter's compassion and friendship with one of her foster children opened up Scott's eyes. Like I had been for foster care for a long time. God put it on my heart whenever Reagan was a baby. I remember a friend saying something to me like, "You make such pretty babies. Are you guys going to have a boy?" And I said, "No, I'm done birthing children, but I will have a son one day." And of course she's like, "What are you talking about? Like, what do you mean?" And I was like, "Adoption or foster care. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I will have a son one day. I can feel it in my core." And so sure enough, God delivered.
Sounds familiar.
I know, right? It's so cool. But we transitioned from the dog rescue for a few reasons. And this is the funny thing about God. I was very set in God has given us this mission through the dog rescue. And, we're reaching people. We're doing good. Okay, this is what we're to do. And I was very set. He put this in front of us. This is what we're doing. We should not be stepping away from it. And because I was also feeling this call to foster care, Scott was getting on board, and I was opposed to doing both. I did not like the idea of my attention being split that many times. And from August of that year,
on top of teaching
full time.
I wanted to throw that in there.
And my kids were getting into extracurriculars. I mean, it was a little crazy. Provision though. God's provision was the only way we survived. But we get to like October, and Scott had already had one spinal fusion surgery. He has degenerative disc disease, and he'd already had one. He knew he was going to need more. I was in denial. We met with his surgeon though, and the surgeon told me that yes, he's going to need another, and another, and another. And it hit me then. I'm like, we can't keep doing dog rescue then, because he had weight restrictions, and again, we got into dog rescue not for the sake of just saving the dogs, but for working them through their stuff and helping them find homes.
And that's physically demanding.
Very much so, and very time demanding. And so I was like, we can't continue to do that if this is the path we're on with your surgeries. So we had to close that. And in closing that chapter, though, again, Scott had got to see and witness friends here through Central stepping into foster care, stepping into that very hard yes. He got to see it play out. He got to meet those kids that come from such hard situations, which I have known for years through school systems. And he could not believe the resilience that he was seeing. He couldn't believe the resilience of the adults involved and of the children and the goodness that just pours out of these children. And so he said yes, finally. And so that was kind of our transition, was from rescuing dogs, going into foster care.
We're talking about, you and how you talked about how you set up the rescue, it almost sounds like setting up foster care for you. There are so many similarities, and you know this from being in the classroom. Scott now has discovered it, but you seeing the trauma that they went through even at a young age a lot of times, and the families that they've been through, the lack of families they've been through, the system, that's it, the system. And you finding out their quirks, working with them, giving them the time and energy that they've never been able to get, and now bringing their resiliency mirrored with the grace of God and bringing the best out of these kids.
Absolutely.
So
and it was crazy to witness that over time, look back and be like, oh, through the rescue, God was actually preparing us for foster care. That sounds silly, but we really felt that.
And here's the question you guys have discovered, and I will pose this question to the audience. Ooh, I think this might be a new thing we do on the podcast.
Oh.
People listening, what do you need to say no to that is good because God has something better for you?
Yes.
So what is it? Because it's something.
Yes.
And that's the hard thing. It might be your flesh wanting to hold on to it. And again, it's not bad that you want to hold on to it, because there was so much you learned. There was so much good you're doing. 63 dogs in 2 years. That's crazy. And he could have continued that on, and you could have had 600 dogs in 10 years. But again, now you got 2 in your home. And what's the situation like right now?
Okay. So, and on the note of saying no to the good things, on top of the dog rescue shifting, I also had God work very, very, very diligently on me through a transition in my career and in what my job looked like.
Talk about that.
Okay, so I had spent years at the primary center and I loved it, but my final year there, I got incredibly restless and for no real good reason. I couldn't identify why.
The environment didn't really change.
No, it didn't. You know, like nothing really changed out in the yes, like you said, the environment, but I was incredibly restless and I could feel that turmoil and I couldn't understand it. Looking back now, that was God working in me, like in a very strange way, because I didn't expect it to feel that way, but I needed to be restless there. I needed to want to step away from what was comfortable to something different. And whenever I first transitioned from the primary center to my new school, Opti Iqbal Rive, which I love, I remember the first day of school, I sat in my office and I felt like I had done the biggest mistake of my life. I felt like I had made a wrong choice. I literally prayed out loud and was like, God, I think I heard you wrong. Like I think I was needed there more than I'm needed here. And I'm just not sure of what this is supposed to look like. But if you really want me here, I'm going to need you to help me feel it because I feel lost. I feel like I made a mistake. And that very same day I went home. I got home at an earlier time than I would have in my previous position. And I had energy, and I was actually shoveling mulch, Jared. Shoveling mulch
after a day
end
at
of a
school.
work day.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's not normal.
That's never happened before. And at that moment, I felt him speak in a way of, "You're gonna need that energy."
Yeah.
And it hit me. I was like, because foster care is coming. We hadn't received a call yet. But I'm
You
like,
did all the work, though.
okay,
Yep.
okay.
All the paperwork.
And so I took a deep breath and I kept going like, okay, yes, no, he put me in this district for a reason. It doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't feel right. It's not what I ever dreamed, but there's a reason. And within 2 weeks, we had our first placement. And now work, right now, work doesn't feel like going to work typically.
Really?
Work is smooth and structured. And then home is where we're actually doing the work. You know, it's where I'm putting my most of my teaching practice into work, into play. Yeah. And so now looking back, I'm like, wow, like that's just so amazing to think what I had turned into an idol in my career. I hadn't realized I'd done, but I turned my career into an idol.
Kelsie, are you telling my story?
Oh, maybe.
Oh my.
I don't know. But he stripped me of that. And I will tell you, I was most blessed by having Christian friends who had walked similar walks, whether that be through the education system and into foster care or just in foster care in general, to point those things out to me that he's going to strip you of those things that are in the way of where you're supposed to be. And so, I mean, even Kid Depot, like us feeling that restlessness to take a step back, that felt so wrong. It felt selfish.
And you probably had a lot of good people telling you doing the wrong thing.
Sometimes, you know, and they maybe didn't say deliberately or directly, but, you know, kind of. Yeah. And, man, it was hard. It was really hard. It was really confusing. But if I can say anything, it is to maintain that trust in your faith that he's leading you where you need to be. If you are praying and you are asking, you are seeking, and he's continuing that path for you, you are where you need to be and you must wait. Yeah. And man, he taught me a lot.
That's been my thing, is obedience and saying yes to that. And gosh, Kelsie, seriously, how you said stripped of a lot of things. I had made the connections. I'd never said this before. I have made the connections, pastorship and idol in my life, where I was putting that above my family. Yes. I was doing all that. I was restless in that and just feeling. And again, it's funny that somebody, I just heard this, that perfectionist, and I would consider myself a perfectionist. Perfectionists are usually your most strung out and most procrastinated people too, because if you can't do it the way you want it, I'm not going to do it at all. And so I would get, and then again, but I got stripped me, and he blessed me to move me over in communications, to be in the online, and he structured the connections well enough with great people to make me feel like I could go. Yep. And again, just now he put me in a position where I'm able to do my work here, ministry here, but also know that my biggest ministry is at home. And if that change didn't come, I don't know if I would have really, and without Maria yelling it at me, but saying, hey, this is your biggest ministry. Your home is your biggest ministry, and especially foster care. And it's really, I mean, everybody, their ministry is their number one ministry is their home.
Yes.
But even more when you're bringing in strangers that become your family.
Oh, yes.
So, gosh, I feel, and there's just so many lessons I hope a lot of people, and I think that restlessness, a lot of times God doesn't speak directly to you. If he does, that's good for you.
Right.
But a lot of times he doesn't, because you can build more trust. And that's faith. Faith is believing in something you can't see. And you can't hear and see God's voice all the time, but he can make you restless. He can move, and he can provide in ways that you wanted to provide. So, gosh, I feel like we're really quick on this conversation, and I want to continue. And I think we've got more that I could ask in this question, but we're going to take a break.
Okay.
We're going to take a breath, and really, we're going to ask the question that we ask all of our guests on the Central Weekly. Kelsie Green, in just a minute, how has God been working in your life lately? I'll give you a second to breathe, give you a second to think. We'll be right back. And we're back to wrap up our conversation with Mrs. Green. Like I said,
Yes,
that's her name in the classroom. It's funny because we've got Mr. Fothery here, Joe Fothery. He's an adult. I'm an adult. But he was my teacher, and I still have to call him Mr. Fothery.
Right.
But anyway, so Mrs. Green, how has God been working in your life lately?
Well, I think that there is a slight continuation of understanding what I'm to say yes to and what I'm to say no to. But I'm seeing that not just in the activities that I become involved in. I'm seeing that in relationships. I am seeing that in what I spend my time on.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest areas I feel like I'm seeing that on is when it comes to old friendships.
Yeah.
And those friendships, those things that I used to want to run to whenever I had a question or I had a problem or I had a scenario that I just needed to play out. I used to always take that to someone. It made that someone was always different. You know, they changed over time, different phases of life. But Maria actually taught me this at a study last year. I have always struggled with going to God first. And in this most recent season of life, I have been put in that situation over and over again where that's what he wants from me. And so I'm continuously learning right now to take things to him first. Yes, those friendships are good. Yes, I have Christian friends that I can go to for advice, and I do at times, but I need to go to him first. And sometimes I do that, and it's kind of amazing because I've learned to take some of my frustrations to him, and almost instead of saying it and just breathing negativity out at someone else, I'm not. I'm just, he sends a peace to me that allows me to navigate situations that are uncomfortable, that are aggravating, that are, destructive to my peace and the peace in my home. And so it's kind of amazing to witness that. The good stuff too, like sometimes it's just amazing for me to learn how to be quiet and take my praise to him, especially someone like a teacher who likes to talk. But that's something I've really been learning, how to be quiet and how to take things to him first. And it's empowering. Like your wife, when she spoke on it, she hit the nail on the head. She was very right.
And
wise
I think
woman.
That really plays into the whole conversation. What do we need to say no to in order to say yes to something else? And a lot of times it's good to go to your Christian friends. That's good, but it's better to go to God first. Because again, he's going to give you a lot of things first, and then if you still need to go back to that friend and saying, "Here's what God's telling me," and then that friend can confirm that about what the Holy Spirit's telling you. So yeah, that's good stuff. And here really far back, good stuff.
Okay.
RTI, what's it stand for?
Response to intervention.
Okay, and so basically, your job in a nutshell now.
My job in a nutshell now is I run a benchmark assessment on students to get kind of where they are in comparison to grade level peers. I look for students who maybe need some enrichment or who need some extra support. And kind of support teachers in providing those things to their students. I build relationships with those students, get to work with them and develop relationships with them, but they maybe don't last all year. Maybe I only work with them for a short period of time. And that's been pretty cool, especially in a small community school. I've gotten to know so many students and so many families, and so it's been pretty amazing. Like I said, never imagined I would ever be walking the walk I'm walking right now. But I'm so grateful for it. I'm so grateful for it.
Well, Kelsie Green, good conversation. Mrs. Green, good job.
Thanks, sir.
I just appreciate hearing your heart and hearing how God has been moving in your life, because he's been doing a mighty way and some mighty things. And he's not done yet. It's those kids get older and they get wiser, and you learn different lessons. And again, we need to get Scott in here. You think he'd do the podcast?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, it's good. Well, we might have to ask him next. So thank you, Mrs. Green, for being on the Central Weekly. Again, one more time, appreciate you.
Thank you.
And that's it with our conversation with Mrs. Green. Adults know her as Kelsie Green. So good conversation.
The story that Scott and Kelsie have walked over the last several years is just really cool to hear on the podcast.
Yeah, hopefully it was an inspiration for other people. Some really good inspirational stories the last 2 weeks with Mrs. Spann and now Mrs. Green. And hopefully next week, I think we might have another teacher, another educator. An educator of myself might be in the podcast next. I'm not going to give it away because I'm not. It's probably about 90%.
An educator of yourself?
Of me.
Oh,
obviously
really?
It wasn't a grammar teacher.
Former teacher.
Former teacher. But really, this is a time in our lives as believers that we need to be encouraging and praying for the people that are pouring into our kids' lives on a weekly basis. So.
Also, next week, we're going to be talking about the expansion of the church.
Boom.
And so on this podcast, we'll be talking about some other exciting stuff that we'll be talking about in service next weekend. And so, I just encourage you to listen for that.
It'll be fun. We might have to bring somebody else in here, too.
Possibly so.
We might have to. Okay, we'll see you next weekend. Thanks so much. And wherever you go, whatever you do, make relationships matter.
Nice, Jerry.
We'll see you on. Bye, guys.